Hello and welcome to Past Your Bedtime. My name's Bev. I have a theory about pigs, or rather, should I say, about our perception of them. Whether it was when, as a baby, the nursery rhyme "This Little Piggy Went to Market" was sung to make putting my socks on much more fun, or later when I read and reread the children's story Charlotte's Web, in which the main character Wilbur was saved from slaughter by a clever spider. It seemed that pigs, and in particular piglets, were cute, slightly dim, and fundamentally harmless. Even Piglet in Winnie the Pooh was portrayed as timid, thoughtful, brave, and generous. How could you not love him? When you see a fully grown pig in the flesh for the first time, however, the sheer size of some breeds and their coarse, bristly hair coat is a bit alarming. Full-size pigs don't seem to generate the same adoration. Not only are they the villains of Orwell's Animal Farm, but represent the very word to describe gluttony and greed. And pretty much any time a conversation turns to pigs, you can place money on someone telling a tale about a pig farmer that fell over in the sty and ended up as dinner that day. I mention this to highlight why I feel pigs need a PR makeover. In prepping for the interview you're about to hear, it occurred to me that on the podcast so far, I hadn't discussed pig farming with anyone. Unlike dairy and beef, it seems there are far fewer pig farmers appearing in my social media feeds. As we chatted, it would become clear why that might be. I'm so excited to bring you this episode, not just because my guest is such an eloquent speaker, but also because I learned a whole lot about the process of rearing, its constraints, the constant environmental balancing act, as well as handling the public's perception. Fred Allen is shaping the conversation with passion, conviction, and a genuine respect for the species. And, in typically modest fashion, I would not learn until after our recording that he'd recently been nominated in the Pig Farmer of the Year category at this year's Farmers Weekly Awards. Best of luck, Fred. In both respects, take it away. And as I say, pig farming has been so far a total blind spot for me. So I'm really grateful for you to share a bit of that understanding and answer my daft questions, I expect. If you don't.
I've heard them all, so sure they won't be as daft as you think.
I do know that you run a mixed farm system and you've got, is it 850 sows on the farm? Take me back a bit further. How did you get into farming to begin with?
So probably a bit of an unusual route overall. So I grew up on the family farm. So I'm third generation farmer. My granddad built the farm that we've farmed now in, I think it was 1956. That was just 12 acres and a couple of outbuildings. My dad and uncle took over from them, from my granddad. My dad started a pig enterprise as part of the company. My uncle was more interested in the arable, so the bit by bit they grew each sector themselves. My dad was more into the livestock side, so that was sort of where I grew up around. And growing up through the 90s and noughties, I bore witness to some of the trials that he experienced. There was a huge financial pressures in the late 90s, early noughties, foot and mouth. And although I was interested in it, I was sort of advised maybe to look at a profession elsewhere because of how tumultuous the industry was and how the sector was and how the farm had gone through these struggles and somehow just about scraped through to survive. So I had a keen interest in environment. Keen interest in environment and keen interest in money, I suppose. So I went off to university to do a geography degree with the ambition of going on to Australia to be a geologist in the mines out there and retire at 40, buy myself a yacht and just live the dream for the rest of my life. Went out there with all these ambitions. Within a couple of months of doing that, I felt the pull of agriculture was too hard not to ignore. I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. I started working on farms again in Australia, then across to New Zealand, did a bit of traveling in between times. And then in 2014, 15, I think, my dad had a bit of started to experience some health issues. there was a bit of a question mark over the future of the farm. Thought this might be a bit of an opportunity to at least come back and help in the short term. And I never left. Stayed here ever since. And that was 12 years ago now. And as the circumstances have kind of progressed, I've taken on more and more responsibility. And now, yeah, we were a 500 sow outdoor unit when I first came on board, managed that. And now we've progressed to 850 sows indoors, and we're just undergoing some development now to get us up to 1,200 sows. So yeah, it's quite remarkable how much we've achieved in quite a short period of time and where we've got to. But as a very loose overview, that's sort of how I've ended up where I am right here today.
It's funny what you say there. It doesn't sound too dissimilar from a few people that I've met, in that perhaps the ambition at 18, 19 is that you will do something radically different or see the world, and they're encouraged to. You don't want to be in farming, goodness me, it's too tough, go and find something else to do. But there's a pull, there's something that isn't satisfied by doing that, and you end up back at the farm. So it doesn't sound too different.
Yeah, there is. It's very cliche, but you hear this term, it's in your blood. Once you've grown up around it and you've experienced it, and you sort of take it for granted as you're growing up, or I felt I did. It was only when you sort of go, urban areas and different experiences that you actually think, oh, well, there's just something about the organic nature of farming, producing food, giving everything you can. If you like hard work and you're passionate, it's a great industry to be in. And yeah, okay, you need the financial backing these days to do it. But if you're hardworking and got the knowledge and the skill set and willing to learn new things all the time, then you can find yourself to be quite successful in it. But it is extremely challenging, and no question. But overall, I must really love it, because the trials and tribulations that we experience, you would question anyone else saying whether they would do it. But yeah, it's
others have said to me, I think it was Ollie that said, if you stood up in Dragon's Den and suggested your business model to them, they'd laugh at you.
Absolutely, we're a 0.5% profit margin. You'd be walking down the stairs, let alone getting the lift down at Dragon's Den.
So with that in mind, you've referred to the fact that you're looking to grow the farm up to 1,200 sows, and you've clearly done something right to be even contemplating that. What do you attribute that to?
So we found in the pig industry, or ourselves, that for us to be able to compete, we have to keep scaling up. So there's some big players in the pig industry who will control probably 85% of the whole sector. So we are an independent farm, and we have to try and compete with them. And for us to compete, we have to have the numbers to be able to match their supply. We've just about managed to do that so far. But for us to be, we're sort of future proofing here. We're thinking, next 5 or 10 years, the whole sector is going to change again, and we have to still be in it enough, or have enough clout about us for people to want to work with us. And for us to get good contracts and good deals, we have to guarantee that we're going to be producing the pigs that they need to fill their contracts as well. So for us to do that, we have to grow. So we were sort of at a bit of a crossroads. We've had multiple crossroads. As I said, we were an outdoor unit, but the costs for that were far outweighing the benefits. So that's why we've sort of moved everything indoors. And now the next step is to grow that again, to try and meet projected demand. Whether that materializes or not, we just have to wait and find out. That's the other challenge, if not exciting bit about the job, is you're rolling the dice every day, every week, month, to hope that at some point it's all going to come good. And it does come good. We've had a couple of really good years off the back of some really poor years. We're going through a bit of a tricky period at the minute, but there's always these months, years where there is a bit of a sector realignment. as history would suggest, that it will come good again. We just have to just wait it out, and hopefully not be one of the ones that gets knocked off, because that's sort of what's happening now. Those that aren't able to stay viable will be dropping out, and those that can stay in will hopefully get a bit more opportunity as to where their pigs go and how much they can kind of get for them as well.
Yeah. The interview that you did the other week that I mentioned, was it Mark Hayton's? He referred to the fact that pig prices have dropped massively. I think that was a quote from him. So what drives that? I understand what the drivers are in relation to dairy, for example, and you talked about that being quite similar. So what is it around pig production? So here's my simple take on it. I was thinking, I love meat, all types. But if I look at my shopping habits, what do I eat the most of? It's pig products. It's bacon, it's ham, it's joints, it's sausages. So it's the meat that I would consume the most of, but it seems to be the poor relation to the other meats that are available. So I don't understand how or what the drivers are around the pricing mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, frustratingly, I can't answer that quite so accurately myself, because it's so clouded on what they're using to dictate the price. But they will always argue, and there's absolutely right to argue, that it's based on consumer demand. So obviously our biggest outlet or processors will be supermarkets, which is where people will go and purchase their food generally. There's less and less demand at butchers and markets now for food. Most people, rightly so, will go for convenience and go for supermarkets or online shopping. And we are experiencing a financial crisis, if you like. Cost of living is still too high, and consumers are making choices based on price. And the cheapest product on the shelves, meat-wise and pork, will be those meat that's come from a cheaper system where it's been produced, and those systems are not in this country. Huge amounts of meat on the shelves now will be imported from Europe mainly, that have far less welfare standards or standards of production to ourselves, and so they can sell it cheaper, and it's easier for them to get. And so we are, as a UK pig industry, pushed to the side, because we have far greater input costs, because we have higher welfare standards that we have to adhere to in this country. But it's not a level playing field, because the other countries have got none, if very few, welfare standards, and yet they're able to put their products alongside ourselves on the shelves. There's another problem at the minute where there's a disease spreading across the world really, but now we're working its way through Europe, called African swine fever. And it's finally, in the last 3 to 6 months, hit Spain, which is a huge producer of pork. They really love pork there, and a huge exporter of pork. And because it's kind of hit Spain, the commercial pigger there is gradually shutting down, or they're trying to clear as many pigs away as quickly as possible, really, before this disease spreads so quickly and shuts the whole system down. And by doing so, it's flooded our market with even cheaper meat, cheaper pork, which has pushed us way down in terms of demand. And so our price has just dropped. It's dropped so much, whereas our input costs are like fuel, energy, food for the animals has far exceeded that. So for the last at least 6 months, if not beyond, most, if not all, pig producers will be operating at a loss. And the frustrating thing is it's just not a level playing field, and we can't seem to attract enough demand for our high welfare produce.
Do you see that tailing off? If Spain has to clear that out through its system, does that mean it recovers in 6 months' time or gets back to normal?
You would hope so. And when China have experienced these problems, it actually boosted us. China had a huge problem with ASF, African swine fever, which and they are huge consumers of pork, which drove the demand of pork a lot higher, which meant our produce got a lot more valuable. So that's why we've really had 2 really good years out of it, because there's been much more demand. China have got on top of their problem a bit better now. They're producing their own pork again a bit more. Of course, because the price was so good for a lot of pig farmers, they've actually grown and produced more pork, and obviously just flooded the market, and it's just driven the whole price down. So yes, eventually you would hope that, and I keep using this word hope because the whole business a lot relies on hope, as tragic as it sounds, that, as you say, once the product almost dries up and farmers have to go out of business, whether it's through financial reasons or disease, that there'll be more of a demand for our product again, because there'll be less on the market, and should hopefully drive the value up because it's more in demand. But it's absolutely no way of knowing when that will be. There's just as much chance of African swine fever coming onto these shores and making the whole situation a lot worse. But we have to be glad that we are an island, although there are pretty much open borders because the checks aren't really occurring. So it can happen at any time. It might already be here and we're not aware of it. So
risk. But they're under resourced, aren't they? At the ports.
Yeah. And
so
my detriment.
Putting all that to one side, and for the ignorant among us, which is me, what would be the typical life cycle of a pig in the system, if you like? Because I know there are some drivers around holding up your ability to send them to slaughter. So what would it look like in a normal system and everything's hunky-dory and you're being paid a fair price for a product?
Okay, so in terms of try and do a quick overview of the life cycle of a pig. So they are extremely fast growing. So they are born, usually they'll be in litters of 13, 14 per sow. They will stay on that sow for up to 4 weeks in our system. Some systems are moving that to 5 weeks now because of the stress that the pig can go under when it's weaned off its mum. In our case, we produce such a great piglet at 4 weeks that we haven't got to hold on another week. We can make it more strong and viable, because that's the big stress, is when you remove the piglet away from mum, we want to, they have to be resilient enough for the next challenge, because they'll be going on to, much like a child going to school, if you like, they're going to a new environment, new pen mates, not used to seeing mum around anymore, and they have to learn a little bit of independence. So we usually do that 4 weeks. As they get older, their diet will slightly change as they're growing. Their life pattern alters. We need to match their nutrition to that. So, they'll go through puberty and bits like that in their life stages, and we have to tailor the nutrition to them. And what we really want to do is get that pig that's going to go for slaughter. So that's going to go for your ham and your loins and your bacon. Ideally, by around 21, 22 weeks, we would want that pig to be 115-ish, 120 kilos live weight. It starts off less than a kilo in many cases, and within 21, 22 weeks, they are up to that weight. And that's the hope, that's the target. Supermarkets or processors, if you like, who buy our pigs, they'll want our pigs in a certain weight bracket. If they are over, we get heavily penalized. If they are under, we get heavily penalized. Never ever go under the weight target, the weight bracket. It's more often than not we go over, because they're so quick, fast growing. If they have a problem at their processing side of things, and say we can't take your pigs this week, we have to roll them over to the next week, that could mean the difference of a pig that's going to make me, at the moment, at current prices, 175-ish, 180 pounds. If I go over that weight, I could be right down to 150, 140 pounds, and it's completely out of my control.
Per pig.
So you can go from, that 50 pounds almost, probably not quite so much at the minute, where you can go from just being a kilo out, and you've skipped it. And then as for the sows, so again, they'll be born, stay with the mum for 4 weeks, and then we select the best ones in our system that will go into the breeding herd. So we'll tailor the genetics to make sure we've got the best sows to go in the breeding herd. If everything goes according to plan,
they'll be having their first litter when they are past a year old, and we'll usually try and get 5 to 6 litters off each sow. And if we're able to do it efficiently, we'll get 2.4 litters per sow a year. So we'll be able to, the desire is to keep these animals for at least 3 years before their production really takes a bit of a drop because of age, and then they will go for slaughter and they'll end up as sausages. So yeah, it's yeah, very, I mean, it's probably a bit more detail than you like, but it's a fast, it's efficient system. And because it's so efficient, that's where we get labeled this factory farming label. But it's because we just have to be so efficient in what we're doing to maximize the potential of our livestock to get a reasonable return. While we're having to, make business decisions based on that, really, which again comes back to why we're having to keep expanding and progressing to make sure that we're able to be as efficient and productive as possible.
It does make sense, and I find it fascinating. There's no denying it, unless you are a vegetarian for moral reasons or whatever. For the rest of us have to understand that's how it got to your plate.
Mm-hmm. And whether you do question all the time, and all farmers do, the morality of what you're doing, but at the end of the day, we are completely dictated by the consumer. We will be doing things very different to what we're doing now if it wasn't for the fact that the consumer is so fixated on price. And yes, there are different markets. There's outdoor pigs, and lots of Waitrose have made pledges to be everything outdoor reared for the next 10 years, which is a great pledge because they've got the market for it, because their customers are wanting that, and they can pay that premium. But unfortunately, the other 80%, 85% of the country can't. And so we have to fall into a different market. And our best market is the one we're doing, where we are producing high welfare indoor produced pork. And that's the market we get. And we'll get a lesser price, but hopefully the cost benefit will outweigh us doing a different production system, which is why we've sort of made the decisions we're doing.
Yeah, other than the Union Jack on packaging, I'm not sure, and Red Tractor, I suppose, I'm not sure that it's obvious to the man in the street whether or not you're paying for a different class of welfare when you buy your meat. Are there standards that are applicable or immediately obvious, other than if I go to Waitrose versus Aldi, for example?
The standards are there, but whether they're understanding to the consumer, that's the big question, and that's a huge frustration for farmers. So we have these welfare standards, whether it's RSPCA approved, Red Tractor. We have to meet these standards for the consumer to be accepting that product that they're buying has met the required standards to be marketed as Red Tractor or RSPCA. However, I would question how many consumers actually know what their standard is, whether it, just because it's got a Red Tractor on, I don't think many of them will understand what's had to be done to make it Red Tractor. Same with RSPCA. And it's not often that I go to supermarkets. I would love to go more often, but because of the work, I'm always busy. But they've now actually started putting these stamps on the back of the packet because no one's actually interested in looking at them. Right. They're just completely fixated on price. And I stood there for 10, 15 minutes just to watch what people were doing. And they'd pick up a product, see the Union Jack, like, okay, and then go to put it in their shopping basket and then walk 5 paces and see identical packet of ham, identical weight, but a pound cheaper. And so to put the other one back and get the other one.
And 2-for-1 deals.
And absolutely, yeah. And we're side by side competing with this, and it's a really tricky one to navigate. So yeah, there are standards in place, and we adhere to them strictly. There's huge penalties if you don't stick to them. But yeah, there's a huge question. It's a huge question raised: is whether the consumer is actually interested in these standards, or whether we just need to produce things as cheaply as possible. It's this a common trade-off: is what does the consumer want? Well, highest welfare versus the cheapest meat on the shelves. We can't have it both ways, and that's constantly at odds about it.
I think there's market research out there that demonstrates that our behaviours aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily reflect what we say our desire is. You know, so we
Absolutely.
want to achieve X, Y, Z, but of course we're in a system as shoppers where, and in an environment now, an economic environment where that's playing a part. So I know you myself, you fall into habits of buying, don't you? And once you bought it once and you think, yeah, that was pretty decent, whatever,
Yeah.
then you're shopping blindly the next week just on autopilot.
Yeah, and I get it because we all live extremely busy lives
Busy.
now, extremely fast
Mm.
paced, and you can go on your online shop and just select everything that you bought last time and
Yeah.
go again. And
We're in a sausage machine.
quite, yeah, very good. But yeah, it's quite like that in many ways, isn't it? You just fall into that pattern, and it's quite hard to change.
Yeah. What's the backdrop to the situation with the abattoirs then? I'm imagining when you're saying you're having to hold back pigs for slaughter and it's delaying it and therefore putting the weight category at risk.
Yeah, so it's fair. It's quite a frequent problem around Christmas time and January, where because of everything that's going on, and super processes and everything shutting down, that we do end up with a bit of a backlog of pigs. That's where, yeah, we've got more pigs on farm that they are able to process because they shut down. So this time, it's never really recovered from Christmas in 2025. We've never been able to must be getting quite close now, I think, if not on top of it in the UK as a whole, where we've been able to, get rid of pigs as and when we want them. Several reasons, really. There's, as I sort of alluded to, the processors or the supermarkets are already importing enough that they don't really need the pigs in this country. So they're kind of rolling them as and when and taking them as and when. The contracts that we all have are very loose when this sort of thing happens. In our case, it's pretty much if a load gets cancelled, they have to take it within 10 days. I think that's on most of our contracts. Well, if you're already on a weekly selling system, then they can just continually roll you the week. And so you're always going to be a week behind. With pig production, you can't turn the taps off, or it's extremely difficult because there's so much thought has to go into it. Think where the market's going to be in 6 months' time, because I'm having to make those decisions right now on the basis of where we are in 6 months. So we just continue this conveyor belt of production. And because there's just been so much a surplus of pork, a surplus of pigs, less demand for it. Abattoirs have had their own problems. There's been some substantial breakdowns. There's been abattoirs closing down because it's not financially viable anymore. So it becomes this whole bottleneck system, really, situation where we just can't get the pigs processed fast enough, and it adds to not only costs and pressures, but welfare issues as well, where you've got a contract signed, an agreement where these pigs should be going, and one side of the agreement aren't really sticking to their word, but because they're probably the bigger player, they've got the bigger clout. You've sort of just got to beat to the sound of their drum and risk your own business. Like I say, welfare. There'll be a lot of farms that have really struggled with it because you have to allow enough space and you have to be clearing buildings to be able to refill them with the next crop coming through. And it's hugely stressful mentally, let alone financially.
Yeah, which brings me on to something you've referred to before around the planning regulations or objections to planning. So if your barn or your indoor system is full to capacity and you want to expand, putting in those applications for the growth of the business is then to another level of bureaucracy, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, in our case, it's taken us 18 months from start of an application for buildings to actually finally get approval, and it's the whole market's changed in that 18 months. We've gone from being looking like the industry or the sector is going to be pretty profitable and forward thinking for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and it's gone backwards again. And we've already made these decisions now to put these buildings up, and these buildings that we're putting up right now aren't actually buildings to increase the pig herd. We are putting them up to replace buildings that are out of date. They're inefficient.
Uh-huh.
And welfare wise could be better. So we're putting buildings up to replace these older ones, and yet we're not able to do it. It's taking so long and so much cost, and it's making the whole situation worse rather than better. It's a complete headache, not just in pigs, but poultry, dairy, anyone who's trying to modernize and make their system more efficient, not even financially, but just environmentally. The technology is there for us to be so much more better in terms of carbon footprint, and yet we are being told that, or at least this can kick down the road so far that we can't actually progress and make things better. And it's why the sector and sectors are becoming less and less appealing for people to get involved in, or let alone invest.
So back to my point before we started the recording, I was unfamiliar with the environment around pig farming, and so I haven't read a lot, I'm sure it's out there, about this situation and the changes in the pig industry. But who's spearheading the challenge to the status quo around the focus that's needed in pig farming? So be that around the pushing ahead with the planning status. Would that be NFU, or is it just chipping away at it from
Yeah, I guess everyone who's involved in the sector, whether it be the farmer, the industries that they'll pay levy towards, so the NFU, AHDB, Agricultural Horticulture Development Board, National Pig Association in our case, anyone who's got a voice, who can get into the ear of someone in Parliament to try and change these things, they're trying. I guess we as farmers feel that we pay enough levies for these boards to be doing the talking for us. But as we've sort of seen with Clarkson, we spoke about that before recording as well, about the impact Jeremy Clarkson, the strongest tool to get our message across to how bad things are is from the base level, and farmers telling their story seems to be getting the most amount of attention and attraction and actually dictating change. Now, we've not really spoke about it yet, but it's a huge challenge of pig producers to explain or tell their story to the public, to any MPs, councils, about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the challenges that we experience. And there's this huge fear factor. The reason why pig producers aren't doing it yet. Arable paints a great picture. Sheep always look lovely out in a field, paints a great picture. Dairy's got its problems. I completely agree with that. But seeing dairy cows outside munching on grass with the sun setting paints a great picture. Absolutely. You think about pigs, it's like, oh, well, pigs, I remember I should be outdoors rolling around in mud. And the reality is that the sector's changed so quickly that we've not told the story, why we've moved from an outdoor system, with pigs, to an indoor system, and why the benefits are there. Now, because we're so far removed from the consumer, they don't understand what we're doing. Now the whole sector's too fearful to explain what we're doing for fear of the ramifications. And like is rife. We don't really want to put ourselves in a sticky situation with that, because if the processors catch wind or see footage of something that's been taken on our farm, another farm that they're linked to, they will drop you immediately, because they don't want the bad press either. So it's a lot easier for farmers to just shut the gates, shut the doors, and not explain or not show why we're doing what we're doing, which is really, I think, our sector's greatest challenge. I don't think production is our biggest challenge. I think it's
PR.
This is it. It's understanding its perception. And I think, I sort of forget what the original question was, but I think we've really, it's the farmers that have got to tell the story to get to really get change to materialize.
You answered it fantastically. That's a great insight. I mean, it comes back to, as you say, the storytelling and the PR value. I had this conversation a little while ago with somebody about why is it that the pig farming's got such a bad rap, and obviously you've explained what some of those issues are around the public perception and that the system changed. Where I used to live in Sussex, and Huntington was not far away. There's massive pig farms, and that was a delightful scene to sort of drive through in the morning, see the sort of Nissan huts or whatever, and the pigs rolling around in the mud, and that paints a very different picture in people's perception of what
Absolutely.
it
And
means to farm pigs.
It still happens.
Yeah.
You know, half of the, well, probably less than that now, but I mean, half of the pigs produced in this country will be on outdoor systems. However, in our case, the decision wasn't financial to bring our herd indoors. It was environmental, was probably the main driver, and sustainability. We're experiencing far more weather extremes now than ever before. Pigs, well, like ourselves, really don't want any stress. They like everything just to be nice and steady and stable. You know, the seasons just drifting into each other. Yeah, we've got nice warmish summer, then drifts into mildish autumn, slightly colder winter, and then back again. Well, now we're sort of going just last week,
one extreme to the other.
Absolutely. It went up 10 degrees within the space of 3 days, and it stressed them out. And I found when we had outdoor pigs, it was like we had that 40-degree heat. I forget which year it was now. During COVID, I remember that much because I had COVID at the same time, and it was
2021.
It was hell. And we had as much water out in our outdoor paddocks as anywhere. Loads of wallow holes, but it's like with everything, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And we just couldn't get these pigs to stay cool because all they wanted to do was lie there and not use any of the energy, and they just overheated. And we didn't lose many, but we still lost enough for me to maybe think this is not high welfare. This is not good for us. It's the same when it gets too wet, too cold, too windy. These animals, for us to get the best out of them and give them the best life, unfortunately need to be away from this outdoor environment because it's not good for them. It's not natural. It's not what they're used to. So that was the main driver of us coming indoors. We're also losing. I've got an environmental background, and I do keep on top of, and I have ambitions for us to go net zero as a business. And calculations showed that we were losing a huge amount of emissions to the atmosphere when the pigs were outdoors. There was nothing catching it. Anything that was coming off them was being lost. On an indoor system, we're able to utilize pretty much everything we can off that pig. So anything that they consume and comes out the other end, we're able to store, cover up, so nothing is lost to the atmosphere. Utilize that for the land to produce the crops, which obviously then produces the food for the pigs. So we have our own feed mill on site. So that's how that cycle works. But they're also extremely good producers of heat. There's such big animals that we've actually installed technology now where the sheds are able to extract the heat from a building that's warm to warm another building to keep it warm. So our reliance on energy to heat these buildings is becoming less and less. So
love that.
Yeah, and that was really the main driver of us coming indoors. It wasn't a financial decision really, because as we spoke about earlier, there is a market for outdoor produced pork, but for me the detriment
it's always niche.
Yeah, that's it. The detriment was potentially the environment, and in our case, individual case, welfare played a huge part because the pigs just were struggling with the weather extremes that we keep experiencing. They experience stress. They get unwell. If they're pregnant, they would abort their litter. And if they abort their litter, unfortunately, they have to have a black dot next to their number. And we have to kind of, as a business, make the decision that we can't take the risk on the animal because she can't, handle the environment. So we have to kind of get her off farm because she's going to cost us. And it's, we were finding, or I was finding, that we were getting rid of really nice, good sows that had a long life ahead of them and would have been very prolific for us, but we couldn't give them the right environment for them to not only be happy but be productive as well. And that's why we've done what we've done. Whether it was the right decision or not, we will see. But yeah, I had to do something mainly for environment and welfare issues, and fingers crossed financial will come as well.
Gotcha. That's an amazing explanation. Thank you. That's
Why?
just
Thank you.
adds so
Well, it's
much.
just when I tell someone, or people are obviously interested in farming, and I say, oh, my main enterprise is pigs. Oh, I love seeing pigs outside. Don't see many anymore. So, well, actually, I brought all mine indoors, and they're like, oh, wow, hang on. And that's not very good welfare. And you just sort of have to explain the reasons behind it and the rationale, that just because the pork has been produced in an indoor system doesn't make it any less welfare than an outdoor system. We're just doing it in a different way. And by also having an indoor system where we can control our inputs a little bit more, we're able to produce a pig cheaper. Your initial costs are very high with the buildings and infrastructure, but overall, you are able to produce that produce that pork on a smaller area. So you're reducing your carbon footprint for one, and by doing so, you inadvertently actually making your product a little bit cheaper for the consumer. But that's
what we demand.
Yes, that's it. Sort of trying to work towards demand. But you also made the point that although the consumers or the public are saying they want one thing, their buying habits actually demonstrate the complete reverse. And so, we're being, as pig producers, pushed down this high welfare. And when I say high welfare, really high welfare in most people's cases, is more space for the pigs. But by doing so, you're taking up more area, needing more infrastructure, and making the product more expensive. So you are shooting yourself in the foot at the same time as driving these changes, because actually the consumer, whether they want to admit it or not, aren't that driven by it. They want cheaper, nice pork.
Yeah. Fascinating. My last question to you is, are pig farmers a different breed?
That's an interesting question, and not one I've actually been asked before. You have to be extremely resilient to do what we do. Just be used to the stress and the pressures. But for me, that's the enjoyment. I love the challenge. I love the hard work. We've not really spoke about some of the other challenges, labor being one, trying to make what we do attractive to people, for people to work in, because immediately it's pig farm indoor. Oh, I don't like the sound of that. But to make yourself attractive, to have these conversations like we're having now and explain why we do what we do, it gets people interested and involved. It's not just a case of, oh, you've got a pig, you give it some food, you fatten it, and you send it off to market. There's so much more to it than that. It's genetics, it's nutrition, environment, so many different variables, and so much scope for research and development. You're never standing still. We're also so efficient that we get a crop of pigs every 3 weeks. So we work a 3-week system. So every 3 weeks, we're having a harvest, whereas arable, it's once a year. Dairy, you're calving once a year. Same with sheep, whereas we're getting one every 3 weeks. We can learn something each time. We can tweak the system and just make ourselves a bit more efficient and just keep building. And so within 6, 8, 9 months, a year, from where you start, from where you get to, I think it's amazing, and I really enjoy it, that side of things. But the challenges that you face in the media, financially, there's all question marks across the whole industry in terms of environmental impact as well. You have to have thick skin and try and not let it weigh you down, and keep trying to tell yourself that you are doing a good thing, that you are producing good food for people to eat. What we need to do better is show why we're doing it, so the public can understand the reasons why and how that pork, bacon, joint, whatever, has ended up on their shelves, on their plate, and where it's come from. Because it unsettles me, particularly now I've got children, that the consumers don't know where their food's come from and how it's been produced. That it's just it's food, I'm going to put it in me, it's fine, and not really be aware of what's gone into it and why that sort of dictated the cost, and sort of neatly twisted it. And I think that's my next step, or our next step as an industry, is trying to use
platforms like podcasts and media, social
Yeah.
media, that is, to show people what we're doing. But there's just a huge fear that of the ramifications. Yes, there will be negative feedback. I've no doubt about it. But I'm more optimistic that there'll be a lot of positive feedback. It's like, I never knew that's how I got my bacon sandwich. I never
Yeah.
knew that's what you did, and that's how you did it.
And
Brilliant.
tapping into people's curiosity, that I think that's the key
And
to
there
it,
is,
isn't it?
you know, Jeremy Clarkson has given us the best stepping stone. People are so interested now. We've now got to jump on the back of that and try and be audacious enough to go with it. But easier said than done. I'm much younger than the average pig farmer, so I've probably got a little bit more ambition and desire to do it.
Perhaps there's a fly on the wall there, TV series for pig farmers, as there's been this fascination with shepherding and Yorkshire farms and things like that. So that's what it needs, perhaps, to get the message through.
I hope so. Hope so. Watch this space. I think it will come. It's just when and how up for it other people like me are. Because I mean, I'd live to do it, but I would be fairly against doing it on my own, because I'd be probably used as a bit of a guinea pig. If it didn't go well, chuck him under the bus. If it did, then great, we'll all follow in. But anyway, if we keep the conversation going, hopefully more attention and it will build.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's clear your passion in the industry for pig farming. It just comes through loud and clear. So I really appreciate you helping me understand a bit more, and it'd be lovely to catch up with you again sometime. We'll come and see the farm.
Absolutely, yeah. If people like yourself are interested, then I'd be silly not to show you around and give you a bit more of an in-depth discussion on what we actually do and why we do. But yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much, Fred. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, Bev. Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye-bye. My enormous thanks to Fred for spending some time with me. I really learned a lot, and I hope you did too. There's much to understand about the pig sector, as with much of farming, and the media doesn't always give the whole story, so I hope today's episode will have answered some questions. But if you want to find out more, you can always find Fred on LinkedIn, or leave me a comment in the episode notes and I'll pass it on. Coming up this week, well, I'm actually going to take a week off, technically speaking. I won't be posting a new episode next week, but instead I think I'll repost one from the archives. Of course, podcasts live forever, so you can always go back and find one you haven't heard before. Better still, make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss any. I'll be heading to the Great Yorkshire Show on Friday, so if you're going, do let me know and we'll see if we can meet up. Easier said than done, given the size of it, but if you do spot me, come and say hi. And thanks for all the new followers and comments, and most importantly for listening. But for now, if it is past your bedtime, perhaps it's time to turn in. Until next time.